The United Kingdom is no longer the empire that controlled a quarter of the planet. It lost colonies, lost industrial dominance, left the European Union, and today often looks smaller than its own history. But Britain's real power did not disappear with the empire. It changed form. The British Empire is gone from the map, but many of its systems are still alive. The language of global business is English. The financial center of Europe is still London. Some of the world's most powerful universities are British. The royal family is a global media brand. British law still influences contracts, courts, and offshore finance. And across the world, money, culture, education, and institutions still move through channels Britain helped create. That is why the United Kingdom is so unusual. It is a country that declined as an empire but survived as a system. London is the clearest example. Walk through the city and it does not look like the capital of a fallen empire. It looks like a global control room. Bankers, lawyers, investors, consultants, diplomats, journalists, students, tech workers, and billionaires all operate inside one dense international network. The skyscrapers in the city and Canary Wharf are not just offices. They are part of a machine that connects capital from the Middle East, Europe, America, Asia, and offshore jurisdictions. A deal may involve a company registered in the Caribbean, lawyers in London, investors in New York, assets in Africa, and courts applying English law. That is the modern British system. It does not always need to own the land. It helps structure the deal. This is a different kind of power from the old empire. The old empire used ships, colonies, and flags. The modern version uses banks, contracts, universities, media, language, and financial infrastructure. It is less visible, but it still shapes how the world works. Britain's biggest advantage is English. This sounds obvious, but it is one of the most valuable legacies any country has ever left behind. English became the language of business, aviation, science, software, diplomacy, entertainment, and the internet. A Chinese executive, a German engineer, an Indian programmer, a Brazilian student, and a Saudi investor can all use English as a bridge that gives Britain a permanent cultural advantage. The United States made English even more dominant, but Britain gave it historical depth. Prestige and global roots, British universities, literature, broadcasting, law, and diplomacy all benefited from that. A country can lose territory, but if its language becomes the operating system of global communication, it still has influence. This is why Britain punches above its size. A French film can be successful, a Korean song can go global, a Spanish football club can dominate attention. But English language culture starts with a structural advantage because the audience is already enormous. That helps British media, music, books, journalism, universities, and entertainment travel farther. The BBC, The Economist, Financial Times, Reuters, British documentary style, British drama, British comedy, British music, Premier League football. All of this feeds the same machine. Britain is not only exporting products, it exports ways of speaking, thinking, reporting, and performing status. Even the monarchy works like a soft power engine. For many British people, the royal family is controversial, expensive, outdated, or deeply political, but globally it is one of the most recognizable national brands on earth. Coronations, weddings, funerals, palaces, uniforms, and royal scandals turn Britain into constant international content. Most countries spend huge money trying to make the world look at them. Britain has a monarchy that can pull global attention without needing to explain what it is. That attention has value. Tourism, prestige, nostalgia, media rights, luxury branding, and national identity all get attached to the same image: Old Britain, Royal Britain, Historical Britain. It may not represent the whole country, but it keeps Britain visible. Visibility matters in global power. A country that people constantly watch is harder to ignore, but the deeper British power is not Buckingham Palace. It is law and finance. English law is trusted in international business because it is predictable, flexible, and deeply connected to global commerce. Many international contracts use English law even when the deal has little direct connection to the UK. Companies and investors often want a legal system that feels stable and commercially experienced, that creates influence far beyond Britain's borders. If global money trusts your courts, your lawyers, and your legal language, then your country becomes part of deals happening everywhere. London's law firms, arbitration centers, and financial institutions sit inside that trust network. This is why London remains so important even after Brexit. Brexit damaged Britain's relationship with Europe, created trade friction, and made the country look politically unstable. But London did not stop being a global financial center overnight. The network was too deep. Talent, banks, law firms, insurance, asset management, foreign exchange, consulting, and private wealth services do not disappear just because politics changes. They can weaken. They can move pieces elsewhere. But networks built over centuries are hard to replace quickly. London still matters because global finance runs on trust, habit, language, time zones, and people. It sits between America and Asia. It connects European markets with global capital. It has legal depth, professional services, and a culture built around handling money from everywhere. This is where Britain becomes uncomfortable. A large part of its global financial role is connected not only to clean investment but also to offshore wealth secrecy, tax planning, and money that powerful people want to protect. Britain is surrounded by a wider financial web, crown dependencies, overseas territories, and offshore jurisdictions with deep historical links to the UK. Places like the Cayman Islands, British Virgin Islands, Bermuda, Jersey, and Guernsey became important in global finance because they help structure ownership, taxes, and assets. They are not all the same, and they are not simply controlled like colonies in the old way, but they are part of the British-linked financial world. This is one of the least visible pieces of British power. The empire did not fully disappear. Some of its edges became financial infrastructure. That system attracts criticism for obvious reasons. Offshore structures can be used legally by companies and investors, but they can also hide wealth, reduce taxes, obscure ownership, and make corruption harder to trace. When people talk about dirty money, shell companies, and oligarch wealth, British-linked jurisdictions often enter the conversation. This is why Britain's role is so complicated. It presents itself as a rule of law country, while parts of the wider British financial network are criticized for helping people avoid rules elsewhere. It wants to be a clean global financial center, but it also benefits from being useful to people who want privacy, tax efficiency, and legal complexity. That tension is central to modern Britain. The country's old imperial power was visible. The modern financial version is hidden inside paperwork. But Britain is not only money. Its universities are another pillar of influence. Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial College London, LSE, UCL, and other institutions attract students from around the world. Many of those students return home to become politicians, executives, lawyers, journalists, academics, and officials. That is long-term soft power. When a future minister, billionaire, or media leader spends years inside a British institution, Britain gains a relationship. Education becomes a diplomatic asset. The student pays tuition, absorbs culture, builds a network, and carries part of that experience into their future career. This is one reason Britain remains influential among elites. It trains people who later make decisions elsewhere. The same is true in media and culture. Britain is very good at producing stories the world recognizes. James Bond, Harry Potter, Sherlock Holmes, Shakespeare, The Beatles, Queen, Adele, Premier League clubs, historical dramas, royal documentaries, London crime stories. These are not random exports. They are pieces of a cultural machine that keeps Britain present in global imagination. The Premier League may be the best modern example. English football became a global entertainment product. Clubs like Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester City, and Tottenham have fans across Asia, Africa, America, and the Middle East. Foreign owners, global sponsors, international broadcasters, and worldwide fan bases turned English football into one of Britain's most successful exports. This matters because culture builds emotional territory. A person may never read British policy, buy British goods, or visit London, but they may wake up at 3 a.m. to watch an English football club. That is influence at the level of identity. Britain's power now works through attachment. People attach to its language, universities, football clubs, music, shows, history, brands, and legal systems. That is very different from empire, but it still creates reach. At the same time, the United Kingdom has serious problems. The country often looks richer from the outside than it feels from the inside. London is a global city, but many towns outside the capital have faced deindustrialization, weak investment, poor infrastructure, and stagnant living standards. Britain can look like a financial superpower and a tired domestic economy at the same time. That split is one of the biggest issues in the country. London is connected to the world. Parts of the rest of Britain feel disconnected from London. This is not just economics, it is political psychology. When a country's capital becomes extremely global, expensive, and wealthy, people outside it can feel like they are living in a different nation. That tension helped shape Brexit and continues to shape British politics. Brexit was sold partly as a way to take back control, but it also revealed how uncertain Britain had become about its role. Was it a European power, an Atlantic power, a global trading nation, a post-imperial island, a financial hub, a normal mid-sized country with a giant history? Britain still has not fully answered that question. The empire gave Britain a clear story. Even if it was brutal and exploitative, after empire, Britain had to invent a new identity. For a while, it leaned on finance, America, Europe, culture, and global services. Brexit disrupted that balance. Now Britain is trying to act global while managing the consequences of becoming more separate from its closest market. That is difficult. The country still has major strengths: top universities, advanced finance, creative industries, defense relationships, intelligence networks, law, science, pharmaceuticals, energy expertise, and cultural reach. But it also has weak productivity growth, regional inequality, housing pressure, public service strain, and political fatigue. This is what makes the United Kingdom interesting. It is not simply powerful, and it is not simply declining. It is both. Britain is a country with world-class institutions and very ordinary problems. It can influence global finance while struggling with train delays. It can attract billionaires while normal families struggle with housing. It can produce elite universities while many young people feel trapped by debt and rent. It can project culture around the world while arguing at home about what the country is supposed to be. That contradiction is the story. The United Kingdom is still living off systems that were built during and after empire, but those systems need a country underneath them that actually works. A financial center needs trust, universities need funding and openness. Cultural industries need talent, law needs credibility. Soft power needs a national image that does not feel broken. If Britain loses domestic confidence, its global image eventually weakens, but writing Britain off would be a mistake. The country has reinvented itself many times. It moved from empire to industry, from industry to finance and services, from old power to soft power. Its biggest asset is not just money or history. It is institutional memory, the ability to build systems that other people use. That is why the British story still matters. The empire ended, but Britain left behind a global architecture: English, common law traditions, financial networks, universities, media formats, parliamentary habits, sports culture and elite social codes, some of that legacy is admired. Some of it is criticized, some of it created wealth. Some of it created deep damage, but it did not disappear. Modern Britain is what happens when a country loses direct control but keeps indirect influence. It no longer rules the seas the way it once did. It no longer commands colonies from London. It no longer dominates manufacturing like the 19th century. But it still sits inside the systems that move money, language, law, status, and culture. That is quieter than empire, but in some ways more durable. A flag can be lowered, a colony can become independent, a factory can close. But a language, a legal system, a university network, and a financial habit can survive for generations. That is the strange power of the United Kingdom. It is a country haunted by its past, weakened by its contradictions, but still deeply wired into the modern world. The old empire controlled territory. The modern Britain controls parts of the operating system, and that is why this island still matters far more than its size suggests.